Session is recorded.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start this evening with Mr. Viviano. It's going to be giving us an update on the emergency response team and the work that they've done since July. Is that correct, for this new school year? And so kind of getting back on that now that we have everybody back on campus and everybody back and doing normal things, so we've got our meetings back. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Viviano.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Salazar, President Armijo, members of the board. Appreciate some minutes here during the work session to go over what we've started with the district emergency response team. We do define the district one with some district leadership, partners from around the community. And then every school has their own version of their own emergency response team, crisis teams at school. So this is an overview of just what we started up and running again now that we are coming back, we're back together. Things are coming, like Superintendent Salazar said, back in schools with the Moriarty Edwards School District Emergency Response Team. I co-chair that team with Mr. Adams. So it's been Mr. Adams was the lead on the emergency response team before I was. Before I took over for a few years, Mr. McLeod was, and so we still have some good working relationships and some history. I'm doing our best to make sure that we attain, obviously, safety and security for the students and the district strategic goal under safety and security. See, like. Yeah, Natalie and I were just talking about with the projectors and stuff, we need to start doing our presentations in white backgrounds, right? So it pops a little bit, yeah. So on the screen is the Moriarty Edwards District Strategic Goal under Safety and Security. We, as a team, ERT, I'll just refer to emergency response team as ERT. We decided to adopt our goal as a team as the same goal as the strategic goal. It's spot on, it's right exactly what we want to do, and the action steps, we can help fulfill that as much as possible with who we put in place. Down at the bottom of this slide are the action steps that were adopted when we worked on the strategic goals over the summer. Action steps of monthly vulnerability checks and assessments, and promote intra-agency collaboration to ensure school safety. And that was the big one for me and Mr. Adams, to make sure that we are able to bring our first responders, or especially local law enforcement, to the table on a regular basis. So we have that communication, and we have that planning, and we have the systems in place in the event there's an emergency. We can jump on board and definitely do our best to protect our students and our staff members.
And one of the things, just to add to that, that's unique about our district is the number of agencies that we work with. We have the Town of Edgewood Police, the Town of Moriarty Police, we have Torrance County Sheriff, Bernalillo County Sheriff, Santa Fe County Sheriff, as well as state police. So probably we win the number of agencies being in those three major counties. So it is a challenge. It's for the team.
Absolutely, yeah, with our location of each school site being in different counties. And so we wanted to not be in a place where we have been in the past, where these agencies may show up for one or two meetings, may give us their input on the way that things need to be done if there's an emergency. Rather, we wanted everyone at the table as much as possible, and we've had and I'll go through this in a little bit, but we've had a really good participation among those agencies. Consistent, I think, is the word, consistent participation. So with the first action step, monthly vulnerability checks and assessments, we really did want to focus coming into the schools and making sure that the schools were secure with door security. And so we have documented on August 12th, August 25th, and on September 8th, some audits of the schools, quote unquote surprise visits that happened from ERT members. went around and simply walked in and checked doors. And we wanted to make sure that the staff members are adhering to and understand the importance of keeping doors locked whenever an office or a classroom or any part of our building has students and staff members in it. Of course, if there is a teacher who is in a collaboration meeting and students are in pull-out in an elementary school, that door is probably going to be open. But we still try to make sure that they're in the habit of having that door handle locked in case somebody needs to run in. And so we did our door checks, and some common concerns that we're working on and addressing. A vast majority of the doors are locked, and we kind of had this conversation today with the principals and ongoing. Doors locked versus doors secured, right? So we do have doors that are locked, but they may not be completely secure, and we found that out. It's happening in our buildings, and it's in some bullets there. Some doors were not secured. Maybe I should have changed that. Like we wanted them, especially at the beginning of the school year. There were some AC problems that we were all aware of. Some of the classrooms that I walked into when I did one of the checks, I could easily, without any type of instrument to check the temperature, could say it was probably 80, 85 degrees with kids in it, So if that room had an exterior door, that door was secure, it was locked, but those other ones were popped open to try to get some airflow. It's been really nice in the past couple of weeks, and I don't know, and principals can maybe help me with this, but due to our transition with who's working on the air conditioners, with year out, it seems as though there's been not as many of those situations come up. Okay? And then the last bullet that we found with our doors, and Superintendent Salazar, Antoinette, all of us are working with Lincoln, going over some of the hardware. We have some doors that, how old can some of the doors at Moriarty Elementary be? I don't even remember when that building went up, 20 plus years ago.
94, so.
And some of the hardware may be original hardware. So let's say we have an exterior door leading out into the playground. If I walked in, the closure may not be strong enough. It may be worn out. Or it may just be coming to a certain point because the threshold is not, or the door is off kilter a little bit, or the hinges are.
Well, perfect example of
these doors right here.
That we have to show. So,
yeah. So we have a plan in place to check those doors and then possibly get some outside help because of our limited number of. Even if we had a full staff of maintenance, it would be a full-time job just to go around and work on these doors right now. But I think through the August 12th, August 25th check, which were primarily all schools except the high school, that it's improved, that it has improved. In September and October, the principals will be asked to continue those door checks, as well as other types of vulnerability assessments. We have some resources that the principals are able to go through and go through scenarios or answer simple questions, and then we get a report through some free resources that'll help us out with facility assessments when it comes to safety. The second action step, we have promote intra-agency collaboration. So we started the new school year and we held ERT meetings in June, July, and August. At the meetings in attendance is the whole list there, and Superintendent Salazar listed most of them. The one that was, department that was not listed is, or Superintendent Salazar did mention, was Torrance County Emergency Response Department. They've been there every meeting as well. So it's been really nice to have not just our law enforcement, but to have the emergency response team basically from Torrance County there. Connecting with Santa Fe County is hard. We used to work really closely with Mr. Martin V. Hill. And he's out of Santa Fe. He used to come to our meetings on a regular basis. But that's tough too when, I called him at the times and he said, well, I'm going to Milwaukee tomorrow, or I'm going to be gone that time, because he was in charge of all of Santa Fe County, all the way from Milwaukee down to us.
Is this one of your team members in the back?
Yeah, I was going to, but how you doing? Good. So one of our team members from Torrance County Sheriff's Department, I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Alex Bell. I'm an investigator with the Florence County Sheriff's Office. I've been working there for about 4 years.
Yeah, so thank you for coming, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Our meetings will be moved to bi-monthly meetings, just to help everybody schedule. And of course, if we do need a meeting because of a situation, we don't necessarily need to call an official meeting. We can have impromptu meetings with whatever department at that time if we do have a situation. Considerations that we need to move on to help achieve this goal at a higher rate would be connecting with other law enforcement agencies to get some more at the table. New Mexico State Police, they've been invited. They called me actually. Hey, when's the next meeting? I've gotten back to them, and they're super busy being out on the highways for us, as well as the other law enforcement. But our local law enforcement has some representatives who are able to take some time instead of those state police officers who are one at a time sometimes up there for a vast stretch. And then in our next meeting, we will have local fire departments invited as well. Okay. So again, this was a big one for me. This one was getting familiar faces on a regular basis. In years past, we may have had an agency have representatives, but in 5 meetings, we may have had 4 different representatives. So then we have to go over everything again. We had to catch everybody up to speed. And this has been consistent attendance with the same people at the table. I'll give you a few brief summaries of each meeting. So on our agenda for June, we did go over the strategic goal. We talked to the agencies about our goal and what we wanted to do, most definitely with their input and their collaboration. We had a great discussion on the current reality of school safety. In that June meeting, we were coming off of unfortunate incidents that had happened across the country. And so we had a great discussion about the heightened awareness in communities and what the local law enforcement, what they were getting on their end. You know, what trainings they may be attending or information they have that might connect what we're getting from either PED or our own personal trainings. We reviewed select sections of the New Mexico Public Ed approved school safety plans. We provided important sections for agencies, and then we went all the way down to the strategic planning. Well, we provided each of the agencies, so for Torrance County, they got the Early Childhood Center and the Moriarty side. It's just a packet, which are just sections of the school safety plans, which are 150 to 170 pages worth of information. We are not allowed to share certain sections of that safety plan to anybody except within house for reasons that are obvious. But these sections were definitely shared with the local law enforcement, and it provides a map. So they each had a map of the outside and inside of the buildings. These maps also include where the gas shutoffs are at, where the water shutoffs, where the electricity. So I thought that was important for them to have. And then really what it does is it gives the school incident command team as well as the district incident command team. So first responders come on board, they know who to look for, who to ask for at the school site and then at the district level. And then the last part, which was common for all the schools, are the response to emergencies. Those are the purple papers that I provided for each of you. What you have there is this kind of rose pink side, which is what the teachers or staff members would do in an emergency, whether it's an evacuation, a shelter in place, or a lockdown. And then we also had it translated into Spanish for our employees. And so it was really nice to be able to have this, give this to them, and then say what else could we provide you. We were asked by the departments to provide these in PDF forms, which we have done. And the reason they wanted them in PDF forms is so they could upload them into their computer systems. So any of their officers, any of their deputies would be able to pull it up on the computer if they arrive at that school and they're able to get a layout and at least some information. Really important information is if a deputy shows up or a law enforcement officer or police officer shows up, they have our phone numbers. because that's really important, especially when we had, we go back and we had that incident where that state police officer was shot off of Cedillo Hill. State police was trying to notify schools, they didn't have numbers at that time and stuff, so that's what we were trying to step up with, providing that information. In our July meeting, the agenda looks a little smaller, but it was, it was really, the gist of it was watching, and I didn't correct that, watching and discussing the Run, Hide, Fight video. We provided school board members the link to that video, the elementary version and a high school version we have, or elementary and secondary. And we let them watch it without much discussion, and then we broke the video down. What they saw through the lens of a law enforcement officer, and some of the feedback we got was what they really liked was at the end of the video, where the video shows what law enforcement would probably do in a situation if there was an active shooter, where they would be going into the building. They're not going to be trying to rush everybody out. They're going to go try and take care of the bad person and then come back and help others. So they appreciated that little piece was very important in our training with our staff members. Our last meeting in August, we did talk about the vulnerability assessments. We talked about law enforcement present on campus, and I don't remember if it was Torrance County Sheriff's Department or one of the other law enforcement agencies who just asked, hey, can we just drop in? Can we just, do we have to be invited? And it was an open invitation, obviously. An open invitation to come in, and be present. And it didn't have to obviously be when we called them. They could be there at lunchtime. They can build relationships with the staff members. They could build relationships with the students while they had their eyes and ears on the building and what it looked like at that time. So that was great. I gave them an update on MESD staff trainings, the mandatory drills that were starting to happen. Every year we have to start off with certain drills once a week, and then we move into the year on a regular schedule with certain drills. And then we really did try to give them as much information as we could with beginning of the year activities. We're coming off summer, we're coming off COVID, where I keep saying that, but we're back in school normal. And so we gave them a calendar of, hey, on this date, Moriarty Elementary School, there's going to be hundreds of people there because of open house. Edgewood Middle School, Moriarty High School has above and beyond these games. Above and beyond these games. We also let them know that we were doing extended learning, ELTP, before school and after school. So if officers were patrolling at 6:30, 7 in the morning, or they go by Edgewood Middle School, there may be more cars there than normal. It'd be great for them to drive by to see if everything was all right, but to expect that the schools are open, 7 o'clock in the morning and with RGC as well, until 6 o'clock, 6:30 at night. And so we had a discussion on that. And then I'm going to skip down to the last two bullets, Torrance County. The Torrance County Emergency Response Department, they are trying to get a system in place called Code Red, which is really just an emergency notification system for our citizens. It would be a phone app that you would get, and then they can push out any information. And so she presented it to us about trying to get that up and running. And then we finished up our meeting with kind of just some discussion on CYFD calls. There are times where we have students who might be in one of our schools and city police show up, but the students live out in county, and we just wanted to try to get some basic information on how that communication happens if we are working with them and the officers are deciding to let students go home, if they're going to take custody, if they're calling CYFD waiting. And so we still need to work a little bit more on that to get our clarification so we can trickle down to our principals and to our staff members. The bullet I skipped, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. This is a training that I attended over the summer, and First, I tell everybody, at first I thought it was just a company trying to solicit us, because they heard that schools are gonna be getting federal money for safety and security, so I still decided to sit through the sales pitch for a few minutes or whatever, but it turned out to be legitimate. This is a website from the Department of Homeland Security. They do have quite a bit on cybersecurity and infrastructure, and the reason I presented it to our agencies and the law enforcement, they also have resources for law enforcement agencies that they could get on here and look at trainings themselves. Many and most of the trainings are free. If any school district wanted to coordinate with the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, they would do video trainings on a vast array of different types of trainings. This particular site right here is a site that is of interest to us on the ERT, and it's this assessment tool. And this is one of the resources I was speaking about when I first started. So basically, a principal or the group would start the assessment, and as you make your way through, you choose a scenario. So it really is not a tabletop exercise where you would make decisions. It would say, one of the scenarios, there's a large fight in your cafeteria, right? And then there are several questions. Do you have security? Yes. Does security have access to video cameras? Yes or no? And you go through it, and then as you make your way, here at the end, the results summary, they give us a report, and they give us ways that we could improve our systems, whether it's trainings, whether it's actual hardware, software we were buying, and then they break it down also on minimal cost resources that we could look into to very, very expensive ones. So I thought that was nice, and we'll be moving on with schools and doing some of those assessments. And then I believe lastly, moving forward, we have lock boxes that will be installed. These are the combination locks that will have ways for law enforcement to have access into our schools, either through keys or the card readers. And so those will be installed. The rave panic button, I know I've been saying that we've been saying it for a while, but last week, yeah, we're getting closer. Last week, we got the information in a spreadsheet as they need it. We sent it to Rave, and they're working on uploading all of our information. And really what it is, it's staff information. It's the staff members' names and phone numbers. And then with the Rave Panic button, I think I showed it last meeting or not, it's an app that we would press. Oh, I'm sorry, I showed it to the ERT. It's an app that you're able to press buttons really quickly, and there's an active shooter, you hit it. When you hit it, it automatically calls 911, it activates the police, and it sends out a message just within that building. That building alone would get that message that there was something going on. So we also are moving into monthly tabletop exercises with our admin council teams, the principals. We did a couple of them today. We have to remember that our principals are the first incident commanders of a situation. So if we have an angry parent, if we have a gas leak, if we have something, there's a fire in the neighborhood and the school is going to somehow be affected, the principals would go through those exercises. What kind of things do we need to consider? What kind of options do we have? And then what action steps would we take? And then we share out with each other and work together. And then we are continuing on, and this is a little above and beyond the ERT because this is required by the PED for all school employees. But for example, suicide prevention and awareness training. That is in our school safety plan. It is required. And so on September 23rd, school site crisis response teams will be working with the principals on that training. But there were a whole list. I didn't put the whole list up there. Those are just some examples. And with that, that's our update. Any questions?
I have a question for you, Todd. With Route 66 being right there on county line, you didn't say Bernalillo County in your list. Who's
So we
Is
in
that
Bernalillo
Santa Fe
County, yeah, they are, board member Burns, they are, obviously in Bernalillo County. And so to get, that was tough to get a regular person. A couple of years ago, we had a deputy who was, very involved, for about a month or so, and then she got transferred to the South Valley. You know, so that was right before COVID. So we do have some of the deputies that we know, and we'll be reaching out for our next meeting.
I just know when I lived down that road, it was like, nope, Burlington, nope, Santa Fe.
But
I've
seen one time that we had a lockdown or something, and there's about 5 or 6 Bernalillo counties right there where the mailboxes were in just before you go. They were all parked right there. They stayed there all day long.
Yeah.
They never left that spot. They were ready to go if anything happened.
Mhm.
So they're on board too. I
And you know,
that.
one of the things that makes me feel good is in all the meetings and when I've been there, they're gonna take care of kids first and then figure out whose jurisdiction it is.
Yeah.
So, you know, Edgewood and the state police are the closest to Route 66, you know, maybe a while before Santa Fe County could get to the South Mountain, so Edgewood would take that over. You know, if there are things that, if they need, you know, if there was ever something that happened at the high school, they're all going. And we feel very confident, you know, Edgewood's going, Bernalillo's going, Santa Fe County, you know, toward, they're all gonna be there. So, I felt, and they all looked me in the eye and said, and we're going in, we're not waiting.
I'm sure they will respond.
Yes.
Anything for kids.
Yeah.
I'll be right there. All I have to do is just there in the radio, they're gone.
Yes, so we have some very dedicated officers and departments, so we just need to make sure we're communicating because they're all in and they're ready to do what they need to do, but we just need to make sure our communication, and so Mr. Viviano and Mr. Adams have done a great job with
They're
that.
doing a pretty good job right
This
now.
is a lot of work.
Everything that you gave us, the information you gave us is pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you done the homework.
Thank you. I don't wanna put them on the spot, but Investigator Swardell, do you have any comments from our last meeting or just anything that?
No, I just think it's really helpful being able to do these ERT meetings, because I mean, we're county, so a lot of the schools fall under the city. So like all these updates that were happening, like with the schools within the city, we weren't aware about. So just being involved with these meetings has helped us a lot, understand what's going on in the schools. Because ultimately, like she was saying that if Edgewood has an active shooter, we're going to that. They just recently had a lockdown because they thought they had an active shooter at Walmart. Our entire county went over there, and that's completely out of our jurisdiction. When state police had their officer get shot, like that's 2 counties over, and we were still involved with that. So it's just good to know with the surrounding schools, what's going on, how we can access it, because we will be responding to those schools most likely.
Thank you.
Mr. Viviano, I'm curious, like, parent expectations, have we thought about like student handbook or, you know, every time there's an emergency or crisis, I mean, you always have parents that want to go get their kids and sometimes creates friction between law enforcement and that. Have we ever thought of proactively maybe communicating with parents, maybe their expectation? I know we do it when the incident is happening via like a phone call.
Mhm.
But I've just wondered if maybe we gave them a heads up in advance, maybe on the website,
Yeah.
maybe a student handbook, I don't know, whatever, you know, whatever avenues you all might see, but I just know how that piece is always a factor, and I know it won't be eliminated,
Right.
because parents are passionate about their children,
Absolutely.
you know, and so, but I just know that has been a very common issue every time we've had an incident.
Right.
I think Mr. Adams had one
Right before COVID.
right before COVID, that he had a parent meeting and invited everyone to the PAC and just to talk about those things. Because that's exactly, because of course as a parent, that's your first thing that you want to do, is you want to go and get your child. But that just clogs up for the police and the transportation and, you know, we need to get that, that's a good idea, and you'll get that message out to parents, even if it's a one pager. This is, you know, this is what this means, this is what
Yeah.
your response needs to be.
Yeah, we can definitely work on that and get that information in a summary.
In a summary,
And
absolutely.
get it out to parents, and then you have it on the website as well.
Or make
If there was an incident, there was a lockdown, and you know, we will always default to the first responders that show up.
Yep,
You
absolutely.
know, we're incident command, but then they take over, and then they'll tell us what to do after that. Yeah, most definitely.
But you know, there can't be any John Waynes out there up in Curry County that have shooters for the county fair. And two of the guys that came from there, they told me that there was a guy walking with a gun looking for the guy. How did they not know? The police comes up to him, they're gonna say, hey, he's the one with the gun, boom. You know what I mean? So we don't need no John Waynes out there.
Yeah. Right, and I think it's a, President Reno point well taken that we can develop a summary and research what other school districts may have out there. Just to put that information of, hey, if these are the situations going on, this is what to expect.
Yeah, I like some of the suggestions about like the flip cards and stuff that have come up, like I just think those are solid, but to me, the other element is the parent, you know, and in light of, you know, I mean, we've had some events, even recent, is that Taos incident, you know, scary stuff, you know, so it's real, it's in our communities, but just extend the training even to parents, you know, so. Anyways, well, thank you for that.
Well, I mean, one of the things that we were laughing about today is, in our tabletop, we were talking about, you need to think about what time of day it is, so you could determine how you do things. And we were laughing, everything always happens at 2:55, and the parents are sitting out there waiting, and you're having to do a lockdown or a, you know, something like that, and they're all sitting there waiting, and so that would probably be a good idea. And this actually, the purple sheet is actually, we don't have as much to have, we didn't need a flip chart.
Yeah.
Ours is a very limited, and I don't even think that it would be a bad idea for parents to have a definition of what each of these are, because it's kind of changed even from when we were in school or, you know, 5 years ago, some of the verbiage has changed, what a lockdown is versus what a shelter in place. And when principals send out messages, you know, we have a shelter in place, it could be because there is a bull out and next door, and we don't want the kids outside, because that did happen at MES once. And so, you know, or there's a snake on the, you know, in the front, those things, we do a shelter in place till we get that taken care of and then let kids out. So that would probably be a good idea. So thank you for that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Viviano.
You're welcome.
So now Ms. Romero is going to share with us the 2022 spring summary data, which was last year's assessment that you may have seen some on the news about the baseline and seen the state data. So she's going to be sharing the district's data in comparison to the state data. So go ahead. Do you need the light off a little bit, or are you good?
Great. Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Salazar. So I wanted to just begin with just a quick overview of New Mexico's assessment system. It's 2 slides. So it's taken from the Public Education Department's release of our new, what they're calling baseline data from the spring of 2022. Two slides that I want to share with you is just the overview of what New Mexico considers their assessment system. So in 2019, New Mexico created an assessment task force. Actually, it had been created many years ago, but they reestablished it with stakeholders from all over the state, including superintendents, district test coordinators, parents, students, and then public education department people. The task force looked at refocusing what assessment would look like in the state of New Mexico, and they came up with this balanced assessment system. And so what you see here is what is their system. And so there's this small black line here, and when we look at everything that our students, we want to assess our students for learning, equal achievement as well as accountability. But we really want to focus, and the Public Education Department really wants to focus on formative practices, so those ongoing classroom instructional practices and assessments that teachers do minute by minute. I'm giving you information and I'm asking you questions, are students getting it? Out the door exit tickets, did students learn what I just taught them? Into unit assessments, those types of things that are not necessarily graded, but just teachers use that information to drive and their instruction the next day or the next week or the next unit. As well as our local assessments, such as our common formative assessments, practice-based or project-based assessments, any types of those summative or end of unit major projects that students can work on, throughout the year and say, a good example for me is a CTE example. So students in welding, practice this weld, use this machine, and then at the end in the spring semester, they help to build a trailer or a grill. And so that's a project base that they have demonstrated their learning. So those two things comprise the majority of the New Mexico Balanced Assessment, with just a little bit being that summative end of year exam, which the results is what we're going to go over. So our end of year state summative exams are in the blue boxes. So we have a summative exam for students that are English language learners. It's called the Access Test. It is for students in the English language program, and it is K-12. And then for students with our most significant cognitive disabilities, we have something called the DLM, or Dynamic Learning Maps, and it's an assessment where students demonstrate what they can do. And it is for students in grades 3 through 8 and 11, Science 5, 8, 11, and then Language Arts 3 through 8 and 11. Our students that are English language learners that also have cognitive disabilities, they qualify for the alternative access. So it's the access, but it's again demonstrating really what students can do. Our general education students and students with disabilities, they also take an assessment in math and language arts in grades 3 through 8, and then math and language arts 11, as well as science in the grades 5, 8, and 11. And the ELA in math is called the MASA, or Measurement of Student Success and Achievement. So if you hear me say MASA, that's what that means. And the science assessment is called the ASR. I'm not making her guess.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, so number one, I'm presenting district-wide data. Schools do have their specific individual data, and they have principals and teams have already delved into it and are analyzing it and using it to really look at student needs and make plans, work on their 90-day plan from a global view because they already have their very specific actions. So just a reminder of our board goal and strategic goal for, or your board goal for student achievement and growth. MESD will implement transformational instructional systems that lead to improved student academic performance. So again, this data that we're going to look at is from the iStation reading in grades K-5, and then the MASA data, ELA and math, grades 3 through 8. And then the spring assessment of ASR 5, 8, 11, and I did not put also the SAT data for our students in 11th grade. And the state is very clear that this, over the last, there's been 3 different assessments that our students have taken since 2017. In 2017, they took the PARC. In 2018, they took something called the TAMILA. That's when we were just getting ready to change assessments. And then we went into a holding pattern where we were granted a waiver by the federal government because of COVID. And so now students have taken the MASA or the SAT. This is a baseline data. The Public Education Department has said we are not changing the test moving forward. So we are going to celebrate this data, and we will get growth data next May. And then targeted student by student, skill by skill based analysis will be used at the school sites to inform interventions, enrichments, and help students move forward. So this is what our iStation in reading looked like. This was in May, and this is what the final numbers look like. So what you're looking at here are students, iStation has 5 levels, level 5 being the highest performing students, then 4, 3, 2, and 1. Proficient, a student that scores in the 70th percentile and above. So we're talking about the highest level of this medium green, and down are students that are indicating proficiency in iStation. So in May, our kindergarten was 41%. Our first grade was 22.7. Our second grade was 32.3. Our third grade was 40.3. Our fourth grade was 38.5. And our fifth grade was 42.8 for proficiency. When we look at district compared to state, the state puts early literacy in 1, so that's kindergarten through second grade. Here we are compared to the state averages. So K2, 32.2. First of all, green and red, we're the Pintos, and red is the state, and also Christmas or green and red chili. Okay. I digress. Let me go back. Okay, so anyway, state is 31 in K2. In third grade, 40, you can see our district scored 40.3, and the state average was 32%. Fourth grade was the 38.5 over the 35, and the fifth grade average percentage was 42.8 over the 36, scoring above the state in all of those areas. Looking at secondary, 6th through then 8th and then the 11th grade, you can see 36.5 to the 33, 48 over the 35, 51 in 8th grade over the 33, and then our 11th graders on the SAT, 37 over the 33 state average. Looking at math proficiency, in third grade, 27.9, almost 28 over the 23, 25 over the 24 in fourth grade, and our fifth graders pulled a 34 over a 31. Sixth grade, so our 2 areas that we did not surpass the state average in proficiency are 6th grade math and 11th grade math. Our 6th graders are showing a 26.7% proficiency over the state's 32. Our 7th graders, 28.4 over 25. Our 8th graders, 23 over the 20, and then our 11th graders, 12.12 over 16% proficiency. This downward trend in math is identical to the state trend. If you look at the state's trend in the secondary math, it is identical. I mean, almost to the numbers, very, very similar. So we have our ideas and hypotheses of why and where we need, and we also have made some very clear decisions of what we need to do better. We've already brought in a national consultant to work with the high school math department. We did that prior to these results even being released. So we are already working on, improving those numbers.
We have a feeling.
Not feeling. Yeah.
I'm curious too, though, how those numbers, the state numbers, stand up to the rest of the country, like other states. Like, are they extremely low? Like our state is really low compared to other states? Because I know we're 50.
I know that we are in the bottom quartile when it comes to SAT results. But I couldn't tell
think
you
that your
how.
trend, though, your trend line's the same.
The trend's running the same.
The trend's running the same, but it's their scores are higher, but the trend's still, it's high, and down to the high school age students, so, but they're significantly higher, start out higher, so.
Science proficiency, we test students in summatively in the 5th, the 8th, and the 11th grade. This is different than pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, we tested 4th, 7th, and 11th. So in 5th grade, a science proficiency is 31.7 over the state's 31, so we're right there with the state. In 8th grade, 38 over the 29, and in 11th grade, 48 over the 40. So moving forward, again, we are, like the state, we are using this as a baseline, and we know some target areas, but all in all, it's all a target area. And so moving forward, all school sites' 90-day plans have measurable action steps based on data. Principals now will also include this data within their measurable action steps. School teams have narrowed focus to intentional data-driven instruction. That was something that we made a commitment to at the board retreat. And principals have been very, very, very intentional about this action step for us with all of their teams. Collaborative teams are having pointed conversations about student learning and designing interventions based off of student skill areas and specific needs. Instructional focus is based on highly effective and research-based strategies, and an example of that is all of the work that we are doing in structured literacy and in the science of reading, including the letters training. Moriarty Edgewood School District went above the bar with the state saying only 3rd grade teachers had to be trained in letters. We said we're going to go one step further and say all of our elementary teachers will start the training this year because it's good for students. And collaborative time is purposeful, specific, and based off of data. One quick thing, or just one other thing I would like to show you is the Public Education Department has prepared a bunch of documents that they've shared with school districts to help school districts communicate about the assessment data to parents. They've encouraged us to have a town hall. We will be scheduling one for the first week of October. But one thing that they have created is a parent portal. And so I am going to show you what that looks like. This is brand new. Actually went live. It was supposed to go live on Friday and it went live, I believe, yesterday. So parents would be given this URL, and this is what the screen looks like when you first log in. Put their student state ID number, we would give them that, and their date of birth, and then it asks for an email and a password. Once you do it, you're in. And so when you return, you just put that SSID number back in with your password. And so it brings you your child's, and it's only one child at a time because they have separate SSID numbers, but it brings up your child's scores in the areas that they were tested. So math and language arts.
Do they mail that out too, or?
We will be mailing out parent reports, yes.
Because the state used to mail out something years ago.
Parent reports will be, I believe, October 29th. So you can click on, for instance, math, and it will tell you, there's a letter from Dr. Steinhaus, and then it tells you an overall view of your child's score. And then what is really neat about it is it really separates the assessment into the subdomains. So the math was broken down into operations and algebraic thinking, can show you where your child scored, and then the points earned and out of the possible. Shows you all of the areas, and then shows you how your child competes with the state the school that your child goes to, the and then it also breaks down. Yeah. It also breaks down each of the scores and then gives you some links to click on for parent resources for math. And when you click on them, it takes you, of course, to the assessment bureau. But if you dig into it, you can find some parent resources for each domain. Any questions?
Our town hall is going to be virtual, is that correct?
Yes.
Because we tended to, a few good things came out of COVID is that we get a lot more parent participation virtually for stuff like that because they can either be at work or they can be at home. But to get everybody organized and somewhere for a live, and it's just going to be something like this, they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So they've got dinner to cook and everything else, so.
I just want to say it's been many years since we could say as a district that we were above the state average in all but two. So that is significant for us, and we're very pleased. The principals and their teachers have done a very good job, even through the interruption of the last 2 years. And this also says a lot for our district. We were in school, we were out of school, we were in remote, we were halfway in remote, we were quarantined, we were not quarantined, and we were able to score the way that we did. So it's significant, and I just want to say thank you and kudos to your staff and to you guys because it's their work.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Anything else for us?
Just a.
Take a break before. Yeah. For those of you that walked in, we'll be starting our regular meeting here pretty close to 7. If you're here for public comment, there is a sign-up sheet on that table. You just sign up and
then give it to Miss England right here.
And we will collect those. We'll go ahead and call this regular meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, to be a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Moving on to adoption of agenda.
Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve the agenda as is.
All right, so we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve the agenda as is. Any questions? All right, so if there are questions on the motion,
I move that we adopt the agenda.
so we have a motion on the second.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for attending. This has already been what I would say, great start to the school year, and it's just continued with a lot of positive things in the district, challenges that we've identified, but that we continue to just meet head on. So I really appreciate the information during the work session. So those of you who got to hear some of it, thank you for hearing that. But for the rest of you who didn't, the good work goes on. So welcome, and we will hopefully not bore you to death. So moving on, approval of minutes.
Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve the minutes from the August 16th, 2022 board meeting.
So we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve the regular meeting minutes from August 16th, 2022. Any questions, changes? That's been a very good job. All right, so I'll need a motion for approval. And a second.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, moving on to citizen comment.
Yes, sir. We have 4.
All right, Ray Fullweiler, is that right?
That's me.
All right.
I get to go first, okay.
And you will have 2 minutes, and I'll be the timer. I'll just give it a second to catch up. Oh, you got it?
First of all, I want to thank you for, letting me speak and compliment you on the work that you've been doing. I have a book here, it's called Stamped from the Beginning, which I understand is very strongly suggested reading for the Equity Council's members across the state, and also recommended to be read by all educators. This book is the definitive history of racist ideas in America. We all have our own unique experiences about how we grew up, and we're all different. Every one of us is different. We have different backgrounds, different histories. I grew up in northern New Mexico between Cuesta and Red River, you know where that is.
Beautiful country.
And my dad bought a little resort there halfway in between by the mine, and when time for school came, he was told, don't go to Cuesta, because it's all Hispanic and they're going to beat you 2 brothers up every day. So we went to the Molly Mine School, and we had Hispanics and whites there, no other cultures or ethnicities, but we all got along just great. Never even knew what the word racist was, but it's a word that we hear all too commonly now. And there's 2 definitions. One is the unfair treatment of people of a particular ethnic race in a society. Okay, it's the unfair treatment. Well, we've certainly had a lot of that in this country. Different cultures, different ethnicities, the Italians, the Irish, of course, the blacks, Chinese, many. So the other definition is the belief that certain races of people are superior to others. And I'd like you to think about that a minute. The belief that certain races of people are superior to others. And I'd like to bring that to the present day and ask this last question of everyone in the room, present day, here, now, in this room. Does anyone in this room truly believe that their race or ethnic group is superior to any other?
Thank you for your comments, sir. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. And I'll try to give the speaker maybe a 5 or 10 second warning or something. But let's see. Is it Patterson or Peterson? Also on Equity Councils? Your first name?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so mine is just a quick warning, I guess, about equity councils. We're actually on the Equity Council for EBCA, so we live here in the community. And so I guess Equity Council history a little bit. A few years back, the New Mexico PED was sued, and the PED determined that their answer was to focus on race and ethnicity of students, teachers, and administrators in New Mexico, making their new grand solution centered around critical race theory practices. They developed the Identity, Equity, and Transformation Division, which is a new umbrella for all leadership and oversight of all state and federal education acts and the equity councils. Among the core values of the Identity, Equity, and Transformation Division is an agency-wide laser focus, according to them, on social justice. They want every teacher to eventually be an activist and every student to become an agent for change for their ideological and political motives. The Equity Council is a major vessel in which the New Mexico PED is pushing critical race theory. I want to read you a few quotes from their trainings and materials. In particular, we took a training presented by the IET and the PED and the BEA, Black Education Act, anti-racist required training for some. You could write it off if you're an educator. The major theme was that white supremacy is just white people in power, and that our education system is an indoctrination into that system. They distorted history and the Constitution. They said, quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all white men are created equal and that no one else was ever meant to be included, that 100% of America was birthed in white supremacy." They spoke extensively about BLM violence and why that was okay. They say that white supremacy is afraid of power, action, and empathy.
15 seconds, but go ahead.
Okay.
I'll give you about 5 more.
Yeah. They said anyone who's against critical race theory is afraid of teaching empathy, that they don't want their little white children to become empathetic to the plight of others. And they said it's not about politics, but last quote, they said both parties have been terrible to black people for a long time. History has taught us that we've always had two main political parties, one whose main job is to maintain the status quo of white supremacy, and the other whose job is to compromise with them to make it more palatable for the rest of us.
Thank you.
So my warning about equity councils.
All right. Cassie Peterson? Casey Peterson.
He needs his glasses
I
on.
know. Same sort of one.
I was also at that 2-day training, and I'm just here to reinstill the fact that these equity councils are founded upon this racist ideology. This is not a small part of it, it is a core part of it, and if you look into the equity councils, 95% of them are actually good. It is not something you throw completely away. But if we were to start a council called the Hitlerian Council of Aryan Children, there is not one person in this room or in this state that would tolerate it for 1 second. So having just a little bit of racist ideology that belittles white children and calls them the oppressors, and then calls every last minority in this state the oppressed, is not beneficial to our children or our future. Now, I hold in my hands, this is the actual heavily marked document for equity councils. And in this document and in the resource, if you go look them up, there's a lot of egregious quotes, and they're just spread out here and there. Quotes like, "For white people living in North America, learning to be anti-racist is a re-education process. We must unlearn the thorough racist conditioning to re-educate and recondition myself as anti-racist." And this idea of being anti-racism is pushed very hard. It's absurd on its face because it's saying it's not enough just not to be racist. It's like saying it's not enough to not be a murderer or not be a pedophile. You have to be anti these things. They say this journey sends us to unfamiliar territory. We have never been here before. No white person has ever lived in a non-racist North America. None of us have ever been taught skills of anti-racist living. Indeed, we have to be carefully taught the opposite. We have carefully been taught the opposite, how to maintain our white privilege. And so this entire document goes over these things, reinstilling the idea that America was founded upon and is upheld by racism. So I ask that you have our contact information. We'd like to work to actually eliminate these. These are not statute. We have quotes directly out of the mouths of all the people in charge of these programs, and they are not statute. They can be eliminated. Other schools are doing this because it is something that has no place among our children. And again, it's not just about courage. We don't just throw it out rashly. We replace it, and there's an intelligent process behind it. We're not painting a target on our back for no reason. So thank you for your time.
All right. Tom, no, just kidding. Susan Hill.
They just called you. Oh.
Thank you for hearing me today. I came to talk about the Edgewood Elementary School. I'm very much against its demolition. I represent a lot of people in the area that would like to keep it. It's an important part of our community. It's right in the middle of our town. The main thing that bothers me so much is the money situation. I understand you're offered almost $1 million to demolish it. It would cost easily $8 million or more to replace it with anything else. And it seems to me that all of the logical and good arguments that people have presented have been just kind of dismissed or looked the other way. You don't want to answer these questions. And Edgewood's a very important part of the community. I think we're getting shortchanged by the attitude and the behavior that has been displayed by the board. So basically that's what I wanted to present.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for your comments.
Yes, thank you.
Moving on to superintendent board comments and commendations. Student staff recognition.
So we have Mr. Donovan Perea here tonight. Yay, Mr. Donovan, why don't you come on up? We invited him to share a little bit. He teaches middle school guitar at both Moriarty Middle School and Edgewood Middle School. We are one of the few districts, especially our size, I don't think there's another one that has guitar 6th through 12th grade. We have 2 full-time teachers, which is very exciting. So do you want to share a little bit about your program with our board?
Absolutely. So again, my name is Donovan Perea. I teach middle school guitar. I have a program right now, about 120 students between Edgewood and Moriarty. Right now, yeah,
That's amazing.
it's incredible. Out of all, I've gone to many different meetings, meeting other guitar teachers. We definitely have the largest middle school program I've ever seen. It's incredible. Dream job.
He loves this. He's
I was like, so. Right now, each of my classrooms is divided into a way where I have a beginning, intermediate, and advanced in every single different period. So I do about, if you want to think about that way, like 18 different classes, and it's super fun and exciting. We really have this incredible opportunity, I think, with Justin McMurdo, who is, I mean, for anyone who's met him, just incredible. Every time I meet him, every time I see him, I'm just like taking notes, like how do I do that? Why is he doing that? He's incredible. Of being an amazing program. I see nothing but potential in this district with these students. Every single day I meet them, they blow me away. With that being said, we have a concert, little tag, December 2nd. It'll be both Edgewood and Moriarty playing together. I see and feel from the students, and it's mostly the students, a separation, kind of a feeling of separation. And my vision is really cohesion. Everyone working together. You know, we are stronger if we work together. Kind of idea. And so all of our concerts, we play together. I make sure that Edgewood and Moriarty is working together. So come check it out. It's December 2nd, 6:30 to 8:30. There's an intermission, I swear.
Is it the park?
Yeah. Yes, it'll be at the high school back.
So, Mr. Perea, I love hearing about your program, and I'm glad that you came and shared with us, but it was really a ploy to get you here to tell you that we had an anonymous donor donate 40 guitars to your program. When you teach at middle school. We have 20 new guitars at each site. They brought bags to go with them, as well as strings and insurance as well. So that's kind of very exciting. So congratulations, and they think that you're amazing. And so keep up the good work.
Thank you all.
So we will be delivering them. That's why we have these beautiful.
I don't have to carry them.
We got plenty of people here. Let's load them up.
We'll get them tagged for you and sent over as soon as possible. But thank you very much. And but yeah, we kind of tricked you to get you here. So
I appreciate that.
You'll take it anytime. So thank you. We appreciate it. Your good work.
He wants us to die.
Yes, unless you don't want them, we can. Thank you very much, Donovan.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. We have an amazing community members.
That's a lot of guitars.
That's a lot of guitars. Yeah, there's a lot in my office. There's 20 more coming.
All right. Do we have any student council?
I do not believe we have student council tonight. Oh, and so they
Actually, two.
They are exhausted. They worked so hard last week at homecoming and all the activities. And I know their superintendent was exhausted. I took a nap after the parade. I had to go home now. So there was a lot of activities last week.
All right. So we shall move on to principals and athletic director board reports. Any questions for principals on their reports?
I had a question for Ms. Luce. I wanted to ask you, you had in there that you adjusted pace on the HMH reading curriculum. And I was just wondering, did you adjust faster, slower?
We
What did that
had
mean?
just slowing down a
Slowing
little
down a little
bit to learn all of the components the best we can and to go slow, to go fast, to
Yeah.
really, it's new, and
Right,
so,
and I was gonna ask about that, because I know it is new.
yeah, just really trying to, do it well, to where we're not just skimming the surface, but we're able to provide, adequate instruction with all the pieces, and so that's just taken some slowing down to get our feet wet in a good way, so.
And then I also wanted to ask, since I was already asking you, or any of the principals, if we started the dyslexia testing yet? Did we do it yet this year? We did?
We're about, well, I think most of us are probably done, so, yeah,
Nice.
it's done.
Awesome, thank you.
Any others?
I'd like to, I don't know if this is the right time, but I went to the football game Saturday night, or Friday night, and we had a lot of kids, volunteering. And I believe that it's time that we get us a trainer. We're thinking about it, start thinking about it. They are getting hurt, they're gonna get hurt, we need somebody.
And you know, that was one of the things that when we were going through our dreadful budget cuts, that we
Yes.
had a person leave, and so we didn't replace them, just because it was a cut that, you know, we didn't have to actually cut someone that was gonna be working here. But that's definitely, I think, something that we can put on our radar for budget season this next year, and see if we have funds to put that back in the budget, because I absolutely believe that with our students, athletes, that would be, we need it. We need them, you know, to be able to work with the students when they have minor injuries, major injuries, keep them from being injured, you know, doing the right technique. And so I know that that's something that we've discussed, and how we get that back into our system. So thank you for
The
that.
biggest our programs are getting like wrestling, volleyball, they're getting pretty big, so I think it's time that we get one.
Thank you, appreciate you bringing that up.
Perhaps somebody that has a minor in kinesiology? Hint, hint. I know Jim does.
He's got his own job.
It's like, wow, that's,
Is that right?
Well,
Am I calling that right?
yeah.
Masters.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, see?
Well, and I do remember, I mean, that,
Not that you're super busy, yeah. I know you're
That's all that extra time you have.
busy enough.
during those cuts, that was one of the last things to fall off, and it was very emotional.
Right.
Physical training.
It was definitely heavy.
I think we
But I think Mr. Chavez is right, that it's probably time to start putting that on the radar, and then also we have the facilities to support that position as well, so.
Yes, when we did remodel, we did put space and for ice baths and all of that, and taking area and stuff in our new facilities, so.
And maybe even some training for coaches on, better warm-ups and things like that. I'm just throwing it out there, but.
You know, back in the day, back a long, long time ago, when Ms. Romero was in high school, they trained students to also help support and tape ankles. I was wondering, she was one of them, that's kind of like, she was a taper girl, so yeah.
So you can have the
So we'll put that on our wish list and add to our budget prep for next year, thank you. I think so as well.
Any other questions for principals, athletic director?
I think we should point out that I believe the football team has not lost a game yet.
They did one, Albuquerque Academy. It was just too hot. I know, I was hot.
I was gonna say, for the superintendent.
This last game that we had was amazing.
That was a great game.
Kept us on the edge of our seats.
It all happened so sudden that we won that I didn't even see it.
Exactly, now if you look away, there was things going on, so.
Well, the overtime was confusing.
Yeah. Well, everyone's like, what are the rules for overtime for high school football? I'm like, don't know.
That's what my question was, do they have overtime or they just call it a draw?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Honestly, that is like, so I was gonna say for board comments, that is probably most asked question I have been asked in the last 3 weeks, and I'm not even kidding, is what are the overtime rules for football?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, members of the board, the overtime rule for football is each team gets a shot from the 10-yard line. You get 4 downs, if you score within the 4 downs, then it goes to the next team. If you have a turnover in those 4 downs, then it goes right back to the next team. Every time from the 10-yard line, you go until.
So there will not be a tie then?
There will not be a tie.
And they can't kick a field goal.
They can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they always kick a field goal? Oh, yeah, now I know. Oh, yeah, now I remember.
Thanks, God. I was actually gonna hold that question.
Well, I just.
Yeah, I'm with you. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we are ready to move on to, any other questions, principals? All right.
Is this only questions or is it comments as well?
We can move on to comments as well, for principals, or we can move on to the board comments.
Oh, and come from there? Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So we'll move on to board president and board of education comments. So anyone got anything you'd like to say? This
Yes.
would be a good time.
It's a good time. Sorry. I just got so excited just reading all the reports of all the enthusiasm and all the wonderful things that you all have going at your schools. And I was able to participate in 2 of the open houses, and the Moriarty one and the South Mountain one, and they both were phenomenal. And the way you interacted with all the high school kids coming at Moriarty to help was just wonderful to see, the kids going back and forth and all the families that you had there. And you served over 600 spaghetti dinners or whatever that night, so it was an awesome. And I mean, all the schools are doing wonderful. Everything I read about your different programs, about donuts and just the enhanced learning opportunities and how important it is for the learning opportunities to be available before school and after school, and all the team building and the self-assurance building and being kind to one another and being considerate of one another. It just warms my heart to see all the stuff that you all are implementing in your schools, and I applaud you for it and thank you for it.
Very good, thank you. That's good. Any further comments?
I just wanted to say I appreciated the public comments tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good.
Yes.
Appreciate it, I'm sorry.
The public comments.
Oh, yes.
All right, anything else?
We have the, what day are we doing the, meeting next?
The regional?
Yes, the regional meeting.
It is on October 12th.
And we will talk about it during the advanced part of it.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Right. If there are no other comments from the board, I think we'll go ahead and continue to the superintendent's report.
So just a quick update on the IPA request that we've received from the town of Edgewood. We have currently cleared 5 of the 7. We have racked up over $10,000 of attorney fees already. These last 2 are significant. Still kind of trying to work that out and working through that with the attorneys, but I just wanted to give you an update on that. And since our equity people with their questions left, I won't give kind of an update, but we will be following up with that. Later on, Mr. Viviano will be attending a training, I think it's September 26th. We're going to get our equity council back up and running. We kind of got bogged down with contact tracing and getting school started and budget season and all that, so we had 2 meetings early on. The focus that we really have is more making sure that students in our district have equal access to all of the programs that we offer, regardless if what subgroup they're in, if it's a McKinney-Vento homeless student, if it's a student that has an IEP, if it's a Native American student, any of those, and some of the data that we'll be looking at is, so we have 300 kids coming to an after-school program, looking at the percentage. Is there a lower percentage of McKinney-Vento homeless students than there is other subgroups? Well, maybe that's because we do not offer transportation. How could we offer transportation to students so that they could get there? So really looking at that and making sure that all of our students have equitable access to the amazing programs and offerings that we have, because it doesn't do any good if we don't have access to it. So that's kind of what we utilize our program for. But we'll be doing more information on that, so just to give you a heads up. And that's all I have right now.
And it's important to understand the expectation of these equity councils. And so a starting point, it's an absolute just starting point. I found it very helpful was the PED website. It's a good starting point, I think, for board members to go there, read through their explanation. It came out of Yazzie Martinez, so it's a response to Yazzie Martinez. It's sort of an accounting. I would call it an accounting. But there's more to it. I mean, obviously, we've heard from the public concerns, and so I would say that reading the documents that PED has provided to the public is important, and they make reference to the board. So I do highly recommend at least letting that be our starting point so that we can start to understand what some would say is the necessity or the requirement, and then also what others in the community feel like are concerns. So it's a good starting point.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's all I have right now.
All right. Very good. Then I think we shall move on to Learning Services. Director of Learning Services Board Report.
It was a long one.
It was a long one. But thorough. So, any questions for Ms. Romero?
Love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. There's no questions for her. I think that's the easiest.
I know.
I know.
She did talk for 35 minutes in the last.
That's why we
don't. We don't have much time to slap today.
All right. You got something for us, or do you want to move on?
She does have a request, so if you'll
Okay.
go ahead and share a little bit about what your request is, Ms. Romero, on the increase of per capita.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Salazar, as you know, last board meeting you approved for students that have certain medical needs that cannot ride a bus to and from school. You approved their parents' reimbursement mileages, which we call the per capita feeder program. Those dollars are paid for out of federal funds, and for many, many years, the reimbursement rate has been 32 cents a mile for parents. And so looking at the IRS mileage reimbursement, and then taking into consideration, although the gas prices have come down a little bit, but with the increase of the gas prices and school starting back up, and then taking into consideration this mileage reimbursement that the IRS does has changed from 62 to 62 and a half cents per mile for business, 22 cents for medical, and 14 cents for charitable, which that 22 and 14, although it's dramatically lower, it did raise also, but it was not as much as the percentage that it raised was not as much as that business 62% or 62 cents. So currently we reimburse our employees that travel at 80% of that, which is the 45 cents a mile. And so I was requesting that we look at increasing our parent mileage reimbursement.
To 45 cents?
To 45 cents.
When did they change that?
It changes every January. The IRS sets it every January.
So should we backdate this if we do it?
Andrea's like,
no. That's a good question. She's like, are you kidding? Okay, I was just curious.
They show everything, sorry.
And so you were saying for parents,
To be the same.
Yeah, to be the
Yes.
same as staff. So
Yes.
her ask and my recommendation is going to be for the increase from 32 to 45.
and this will apply to, I get we talked about the last time, but does it apply to anyone else? I mean, is it just
So
medical,
what we paid per capita before is majority of the time it's for students on IEPs. And then on occasion, students, McKinney-Vento students, the homeless students, if there is a student that is, for some reason, because of their homelessness, would move out of their home school's area, we would pay the parent or guardian or work with transportation to transport them back to their home school so that they get to stay in their home school. So they're all federal programs that the per capita comes out of. Am I correct on all that?
Yes. And the decisions to pay per capita are IEP decisions and definitely medical necessities. It's not a decision that just, is easily given.
any questions? So we're ready for your recommendation.
Okay, Mr. President, members of the board, I would recommend that we increase the per capita from 32 cents to 45 cents for students.
So we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to increase the per capita rate. We need a motion
I so move.
and a second. So we've got a motion, and Mr. Chavez seconds. All right, all members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to business.
So just real quick, to give you a little heads up on the purchase order over $20,000, to Technology Integration Group, that is for, I believe, 18 more Promethean boards. Of course, when we did our big order, then everybody gets there and we need a few more. So this will be paid for out of our CARES ARC money. So that is where those come in. So it is my recommendation that you approve the consent agenda finance items 1 through 3.
Any questions, Internet Superintendent? So we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve consent agenda finance items 1 through 3. So we've got a motion and a second. So we've got a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Any other info, updates on B through E?
Mr. President, members of the board, no, I will be reaching out to the audit committee. We'll need to have a meeting in the next week or so before the end of the month for our September meeting, so we'll have an update for you.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for that. So moving on. Item F, action item EMS outdoor classroom plans.
So this is kind of exciting, and especially for Mr. Gaston Beatty and his school. He's been kind of, sure would be nice to have some grass and play there. My kids are playing ball out there in the, sticks and the weeds. So, and we totally agree. Let's go. Go ahead. So, through our ARP funding, outdoor classrooms was an approved item, and so that was what one of the items that we put into our application and our grant and was approved. So, it's not going to go all out and be this, elaborate, crazy thing, but it will definitely give staff, teachers, kids space to go out, play, do science, read books, just some nice outdoor space. So it is, 7,875 square feet of artificial turf, so that we do not have to figure out how to water, make sure our wells are working and that water's not drying out. So that's exciting. There is segments of the retainer walls and some different things that they have on there. Cement paint to kind of brighten it up. we're looking at doing a paint by number project. So they would do the outline and put the numbers on it, then the students in the art classes, and whoever else Mr. Gastonbeatty felt would go out and help paint the mural. There'd be activities on the wall where you could play games instead of it just being a blank cement slate, that you could have a score type thing, and some berm area for kids to set. That there could be set and do homework, do group work, and this type of thing. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We did. He was the beneficiary of a shade structure from the high school. When we went to put it in, there were so many pipes and sewer and water and everything we couldn't put it in, so Mr. Gastonbeatty got it, so he was very excited. He's like, I'll take it. So they will integrate that into it, and so these were just some of the different ideas and concepts that they looked at, that they could play the target game, throwing the ball and getting points and etc. So kind of making it a fun place for them and giving them some color and that type of thing. Our budget is about $125,000 to $130,000, and so what the approval for right now is just the plan of that, and then we will get bids and bring it back for the approval of the bid when we after we go out and solicit those. So. Do you want to be excited about that? Say anything else, Mr. Gastonbeatty?
Said there's no take back, so I already told my staff about it.
It's like, oops, it's kind of like, should have told them tomorrow. So now the pressure's on. That's like.
Well, I mean, I'll wait for your recommendation, but I will say in advance, I mean, prior to COVID, we had started to look at a lot of these spaces just because the research was sort of pointing towards education moving into that type of environment. And then, so I know that those conversations existed prior to COVID, and then afterwards, kind of MES being a pilot, stayed with me here.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. I don't know if you all remember The Grinch, the show, and when they put the magnifying glass on his heart, and then his heart grew.
Yeah.
When I've seen the photos, or I've had firsthand experience with the experience that the kids are getting at MES in their space, like The Grinch, my heart grows twice as big, So, I got it. But anyway, so I don't know if you all have paid attention to some of the photos that are coming from MES, or if you've had a chance to see the students actually out there. It seems to be money well spent. So she may recommend something else, but nonetheless.
Seen it all.
Also, with the good weather that we had, it's good to see the kids get out and get fresh air instead of staying locked in all the time. I think the brain works a little bit better.
Yeah,
absolutely. At least mine would.
Where is this in relationship to the school?
So that is right outside their cafeteria. So it's an extension, and you guys, some of your kids,
Like
to the south. Yes, it's that dirt. Yeah. So you know where that portable is in the loop? It's kind of like, it's right there where the kids always play ball. That's we're gonna put some grass for them to play on. They're gonna be so excited. And during our admin meeting, I told Ms. Chavez that her school would be next, and Ron's looking at me, he's like, what about me? It's like, well, you got retainer walls, so your building didn't slide off there. I got you today. Yeah, your building's not.
Don't worry, you will.
Don't
worry, you will.
No, just slid.
Well, I mean, and I think that a lot of this, Mr. Chavez had his concerns and, forced the conversations to happen. And we had a couple of those meetings with the people that provided the turf.
Yes.
We're moving forward with that idea, and I think it's good for our communities to create spaces that are not going to be heavily dependent on water. I mean, we received that one report in the amount of gallons, the millions of gallons that we have to pump to maintain these things. These spaces are definitely friendly to our aquifer. So,
Another thing is that I think that if you get kids at that age, you get them to run outside when they come back into the classroom, they'll pay more attention because they're more relaxed.
They need to.
I believe that they will be.
Yeah, research based, it's there. I mean, that's what's been presented in the past. So anyway, any other questions? You have a recommendation?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve the EMS outdoor classroom plans.
So a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve the EMS outdoor classroom plans.
So moved.
So we got a motion.
I'll second
And a second. All right, so we got a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes.
And we did, Mr. Mitchell, he got a brand new football PE space out there, beautiful grass, and it's actually sod, real live grass, and it's green and thick and lush, isn't it? So we have to be off of it for another 6 weeks, I believe. But those kids, we did it right. It's kind of like we took all the base out, and it's kind of like because it was clumpy and you could sprain an ankle on it, and so it'll be a good thing. It's kind of like Edgewood Middle School's football field is in really good shape, and so we tried to get Moriarty Middle Schools up to par, so I think it's looking pretty good.
Do we on those, the ones that have the real turf in it, do we fertilize them, or do we get somebody to come fertilize them, or what do we do? That's the most important thing for grasses like that, so we need to start thinking about getting that done.
And I think that that's one of the things that we need to have a good system of getting the calendars out and writing down, this is what you need to do this month, this is what you need to do this month. And so we will be working on that because that is one of our conversations regularly about maintenance. And if we can't get it done, we need to hire somebody to get it done for us.
If you just water, you're not gonna get it done. Right. You need to put some nutrients in there. And you need to test the soil once in a while, once a year, test the soil and see what it's needing to be able to, not just throw any fertilizer there, but you need to go ahead and get the right amount of fertilizer, potassium, whatever it needs.
Aerated.
Yes, aerated, because if you do that, it'll last for
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing that is a priority to us, is making sure that we're utilizing district funds in a way that can be maintained and keeping that up, because that's the biggest key is, doesn't matter how many nice things you have, if you don't take care of it, you don't have nice things. So that's exactly right. So thank you very much.
All right, moving on to item G. Light package for MHS multi-sports complex.
So at our last board meeting, it was requested that we get a quote for lighting for the multi-sports complex. Hellas has given us a quote. It was in your packet. The supply and installation of LED lights, 50-foot candles for the softball and soccer field is $298,647. And the same thing for the baseball and soccer field, again, was $98,647. So a grand total of $597, $294 is the amount. Just to put kind of perspective to that, Tucumcari, where I originally from, are putting new lights on their softball and baseball fields. And Tucumcari, just the materials alone, not the labor or anything else, is over $600,000. So we feel like we're getting a smoking deal on this. So I think that if you choose to go with this, that it is definitely, we're getting a good deal, and it's only gonna get more expensive and probably exponentially.
They're already there.
Yes, see, they have to redo everything, it's like a remodel. Whenever you get a building and you take it, when you have to put a lot of money into it, remodel it, it's worth a heck of a lot more money to remodel than it is for you to just, sometimes it costs more. Like this here, if we go ahead and finish up our complex, and we don't do it right the first time, when we come back, they're gonna have to tear everything up that they put in there, and they're going to trench everything in one place, it's going to cost a lot more to redo everything.
And even with the conduit, if we went with that and waited on the lights, you know it's gonna be changed. It's kinda like it's always changed, and then you're gonna have to tear your grass up and put it in, and so, I think that, it is the best to get it done and get it done right.
If you can even find conduit, whenever we do electrical conduit, the 3-inch conduit used to be, we could pick it up about $25, $30, $140 now, a 10-foot stick. So the more we wait, the longer we wait, it's gonna get higher, expensive, so that's gonna get, to me, I'd say we go ahead and do it, but I'm not going to go back. But now I'm not speaking for the whole people, yes, but I'm speaking for myself right now, what I'm trying to say.
Any other questions, comments? I would say, sort of to, the same that Mr. Chavez is saying, I think to do it later could get more expensive. But, just feedback from the community that I've had, there's definitely been a lot of excitement over the fields themselves. And so, a lot of excitement. And I've been excited to share it, and but it's ironic that many of them have asked, what kind of lights, and they say, well, it wasn't quite, that's not in the original bid, and that has been a concern. There's a lot of pushback. So you're going to want lights to get full maximum use of the space, and so.
Well, even if we said we were gonna do it later, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Moving the fields temporarily where they're 20 years. 20 years later, you're ripping everything up. It cost him more.
So they are LED, which tend to be better with bugs.
One of the things,
Cheaper with electricity.
yeah, one of the things that Ellis had told us is that the way that the lights would shine, it would just be shining on the fields, that there would be no overlay for community around the edges, so, which is sometimes a concern. Yeah, and so I think that would help so that our near neighbors, when we put new lights and stuff out, we kind of had to work with our neighbors that they're kind of like, my gosh, those lights are on all night long, I can't sleep. And we're used to living in the country. So we really try to work with our neighbors, and so this would be very helpful, this type of light, so.
But there's nothing better than hearing people screaming and yelling about baseball game and excitement.
Yeah.
All that, it's a lot better than sitting inside the house and watching TV.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve the light package for the MES Multi-Sports Complex.
All right, so we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve the light package for MHS Multi-Sports Complex. I would probably say add-ons 3 and 4. Would that be better to just be specific?
Yes. I don't know why they split it out like that, because you're not going to do one and not the other, but.
Well, and also that could get confusing because up top there's an alternate.
There's an alternate 3 and 4, so just do
we'll
light
just do
package.
the light package. So the recommendation is for the approval of the light package for MHS Multi-Sports Complex.
Which includes both softball, baseball, and soccer.
Right, that's specific.
And so we'll go all the specifics.
So Mr. Chavez has motioned for approval. I'll need a second. I'd like to second. So I will second. So motion. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And just another note, even with adding the lights, this still comes in a little bit less than the original bid that we rejected, so we're still good, so. Yay. Yay, Mr. Coach and I are so excited. He's having a good night tonight.
Did you hear that? I wanted to learn how to like sports.
It's fun.
So what is?
Yeah, it's like, when's my turn? Hey, your building's not sliding off of its foundation. That's what
Everyone likes to see whether or not I did or not.
Yeah, it was exciting for us.
Years ago.
Oh, we did put a soccer, yeah. Oh, see, Antoinette, she's got to get into the soccer.
She's gotta step up to
I
the
make
plate.
sure everybody gets there.
Wonder what the overtime rules are in soccer? Just kidding.
No joke.
President Army had 2 10-minute periods.
Google it. All right, moving on to discussion, update of facility use fees.
So, this isn't a policy or necessarily an action item, but we would like to discuss it with you and get your input. We placed our current facility usage fees in your board packet, and then we put Rio Rancho's facility usage fees in there. It's kind of funny, even the people that are using our fees are laughing at us because they're so low. I don't believe that we've changed them for probably.
It's not in the 7 years that I've been here.
I bet it's
so-
been 15 plus years.
I know, I didn't think of doing some of them with Mr. Sutton.
Was it what, the PAC maybe? The Performing Arts Building? Yeah. So, Antoinette, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you tell us what you wanna do.
Mr. President, members of the board, we had talked about this several years ago, but I couldn't, the rates that I were finding were astronomical, and I thought, we can't do that to our little community. So we kind of put it on the back burner, but literally, Teresa's not kidding. I have had 2 or 3 different groups this year when they asked me for the price, and I told them, they're like, you're kidding, right? No. So if you look at this amount, so multi-purpose room basically means the cafeterias in the elementary schools, we're charging $9 an hour. That doesn't even recoup what we're paying for our electricity for that time period, the paper towels, the toilet paper, the hand soap, the cleaning up afterward, for our facilities. So, I did find Rio Ranchos, and I thought theirs were reasonable, and I would just kind of like to mirror theirs. I figure they have huge teams of people that do the research in the back, to figure out what it costs per hour for their electricity and all that good stuff. And so I would like to kind of mirror those. So if you look at page 5 of the proposed rates, it's got their cafeterias for elementary schools, and they're charging $45 per hour and $130 per day, which I don't think is unreasonable. I personally, in the past, have rented the Lions Club for my own children's graduation parties, and they charge $400. So, for, what was that for? I think for 4 hours. So I still don't think that this is, it's probably a comparable size space, and I still think it's reasonably priced. It helps us to recoup our costs.
Same thing for the multi-purpose room, do you have one?
So the multi-purpose rooms would be the $45. The gyms are on page 4, and for a high school gym, it's $75 an hour or $200 a day. So if you slide up a little bit on page 4, they have the gyms for the elementaries, which they must have a separate gym maybe. Ours is all one room, but it's the same price. Middle school gym would be $55 an hour, and high school gyms would be $75 an hour. We do try to not rent out our competitive spaces like that, because it is hard on our gym floors. It is hard on our practice fields and that. But there have been occasions that we do. We let Central New Mexico Electric have their annual meeting in there and things like that, so.
They even rent their pianos.
Yes, they do. They have charges for everything, wrestling mats, pianos, microphones. And we have some of that stuff listed on our PAC rental agreement, because that's usually when people want to use those things is when they use the PAC. And so we do charge them for those items as well. So if I could mirror their, these prices on that PAC agreement as well, that would be great. We do have, several groups that use our practice fields, and we work with
We
them
don't
as
have
well.
late fees either.
No, we don't. And, we have groups that don't pay me until they put their thing in for the next year, and I have to say, well, I haven't received your payment from last year, so they get it to me real quick then usually.
Funny how that works.
So,
Yeah.
on that,
Yes, sir.
does somebody, when you rent one of the facilities out, does somebody walk through it with them to see, to make sure that there's no damage or anything, or if there is, so they can see it? And then afterwards walk with them to look, see when we,
Not that I'm
when we used,
aware of, unless the principals are doing that at their sites, so.
when we used to rent out like, the Fair Board, the building up there, we used to walk through it, we used to walk through it and show them whatever. And then when we come back and walk through it, if we see any damage, they can not go for them. You know, instead of us having to fix them all the time, because sometimes people get them rubby.
Yeah.
And we really try to keep it, that it's not private entities, so I wanna have my kid's birthday party and bring it out for those type of things. That isn't, it's more for group,
We are required to get they have to have $1 million certificate of insurance to use our facilities.
Yes.
So most people, when they call and ask about doing a birthday party, they're not gonna go get
Right,
$1
yes.
million policy to cover a 2-hour birthday party. So that kind of
I
is
just
for some
wanna
of
make,
that.
I just wanna make sure that people don't get the wrong idea when they say we're renting out. You have to have
Yes.
specifics of what we're renting, we will rent.
Right. The other place that they do sometimes ask for are classrooms, and if you look, we have $2 per hour on ours. So
Sorry.
this one has $25 an hour, which is a little bit more reasonable. So, those are the kinds of things that, like I said, people are like, really?
We're like, yeah, really.
And I told Ms. Salazar, obviously the people that have already have approved agreements, we would just start it from here going forward. I would go back and ask people that already have agreements for this year and just let them know that the ones that going forward, that the rates are going up.
So starting July 1st of the next year, if they've already done a year long, then it would go up at that time. Any other questions, thoughts? Think we're going down the right path?
Sounds good.
I think revisit this. Because like I say, it's not a policy, it's just our procedures, and so we will be updating that and getting it into our board policy and as a procedure in the back with that. So we can probably get it to you in a update or so. We'll bring it to you the next meeting. That's good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to Director of Personnel Board Report.
Home members of the board. I do have some updates, good updates from when I submitted my board report. Under instructional staff openings, we had the split, that's that 0.5, what equals that 1 FTE for special education teacher. Very pleased to say that we offered the position yesterday to a current teacher out of APS who moved recently to Edgewood, and she's a veteran teacher, a special education teacher, and she signed her letter of intent, and we will be having her on board about mid-October. So that's nice to, we did have a resignation, but within a week and a half, we had that applicant and got her hired. We also have provided a letter of intent to employ, and it was signed and accepted for the special educational assistant at Moriarty Middle School. And so we'll be meeting with her later this week and hopefully getting her up and running, depending on her schedule. But we'd like to get her on Monday in those classrooms at the latest. So that's really good news to tighten up the instructional staff openings, because then we could say none, no openings. That's nice.
What are you gonna do during the day then?
It's been a board member house, there's a lot. The special education teacher and special educational assistant at Moriarty High School, I did make a note there, those are new positions that we had to discussions and because of the increase in some IEP needs. And as a matter of fact, we have an interview of a teacher who is qualified for the specific teaching position that we're looking for, specific programmatic needs. And it just happens to be the husband of the lady that we just hired. So we're hoping, yeah, we still have to interview and make a decision, but hopefully it all works out. And then down on non-instructional staff, I had at MHS custodians, plural. That should just be one custodian position that we have open right now, but it's been filled every day with a substitute, so we're good there. And then in shipping and receiving, we are still looking for some applicants. We've interviewed and we offered a few positions, but they just didn't accept them. My staff, Patricia and Amanda, do a great job of, I mean, they want these positions filled just as much as all of us do. And this morning, in between breaks with meetings with the principal, they walked in and they said, "Hey, we have an idea." And they presented some ideas about some staff members who are part-time, especially in other departments. And they called them up and we're going to train them and help us out for short term to help out with the mail deliveries and pickups. Because we're with only one person in shipping and receiving, that warehouse is full. As well as, it takes about 2.5 hours to drive around the district to distribute mail, just the envelopes of interoffice mail, go to the post office and whatnot. So they came up with a great idea and we think we're going to run with it. It may even be starting tomorrow. I didn't check with them this afternoon. So we've got a lot of people working to make sure that our systems and our don't fall behind. And then the big piece of my report, I just wanted to point out to the board members about a new system that the state has adopted to move away from dossiers, which have been, I believe, in 2005 or 2006. I know in 2006 because I did a dossier. That system was put in place for licensure advancement, level 1 to level 2. Level 3 is the highest you can be as a teacher with some extra masters or national board certified. That system has been in place, the exact system, since 2006. And it's got its good sides, it's got its bad sides that can be debated. But it's very interesting to see that the New Mexico Public Ed Department is now moving into more micro-credentialing that they're talking about. So teachers would work on just classroom management pieces and have to pass that piece and then move to assessment pieces. And I try to summarize it in my report, but we'll be working. And then I gave you some information about the number of level 1 teachers we currently have on staff. And with that, I stand for any questions, comments.
It kind of goes into Todd, the transportation report. I didn't get a chance to update the board on where we're at with transportation last week.
Okay.
Would you share with where we're at with bus drivers, please?
Absolutely, Superintendent. On Tuesday, I met with Transportation Coordinator Gary Berkman, and we had 4 of the applicants that had gone through our training. They finally made their way through MBD, and as of this last Friday, all of them have received their learner's permits. Of those 4 that were told to me on of those 4, as of Tuesday, one of them tested. So the way the process is, it used to be get your learner's permit, you get training at the schools, and then you get tested. In February of last year, the motor vehicle department flipped that. You had to get the training first, then your learner's permit, and then training. So we actually have a certified bus driver. I was going to say tester. That's not the right word. But so I would take Natalie out and test him on Wednesday, and if everything went well, I do the grading, and if they passed, then they could be on a bus by Thursday. And so of those 4 that were told me on Tuesday, we did have 1 pass. Took the test on Wednesday, passed on Thursday. We had 1 test yesterday, and I didn't hear the results today. So we're slowly moving in, and they're going right into those 4 open routes that we have. So that's what we were talking about, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, we were hoping by the end of this week, we would have at least 3 of the 4. And so I'm hoping for that update, today's only Tuesday, so it might still be possible to have at least 3 of those 4 routes. And then again, it's about subbing. So we may have all our routes complete, but then we have to have a floating sub to help us out. There may still be some cancellations. If we have 3 bus drivers out sick or family emergencies or whatever, we just don't have that pool yet to fill in every day all the time. But we will be on track to have routes.
How are the roads too? Because the roads have been pretty bad.
I haven't received any.
I haven't received any information about that, so.
Yeah. And all of our bus attendants positions are full as well.
So they're working really, really hard. It's, because you have a kiddo that their bus doesn't run that day, parents don't have a car, parents have already gone to work, they don't come to school that day, so they can't learn if they're not in school that day. So it's a priority, and they're working very hard to get that done. I know that Mr. Bergman is running. They have a overflow bus, that he's running, and so hopefully we can get one of these drivers on and get that back up and running. But it is a priority, and I've actually discussed it with the Secretary of Education, about the system. It's a struggle with MVD to get our bus drivers tested. Oh, you don't have that paper filled out right, so go away, come back in 3 weeks when the next appointment is. And it's just outrageous, especially with the number of shortages we have with bus drivers. They should be jumping through themselves getting us bus drivers. So we're working on that, and I appreciate that.
But the way that you guys are doing it now, you yourself training them and testing them, it's working a lot faster than if you would wait to go through MVD and everything. So
Absolutely.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, this summer we were very lucky to get 3 of our staff members trained as those school bus driver instructors, so they can do our classes instead of having to go. Really, the closest was either Belen or Santa Fe to send people, but we can do large group classes now.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Do they have to go somewhere else for the NVD testing, or can they do it here in Moyari?
Board Member Burns, what happens is we have that tester on site. He's one of our drivers.
Gotcha.
So that's another plus for us. He's a certified tester. And he knows our shortage. So he's a very honest and ethical man. And if you don't pass, he's not going to put you on a bus for kids. And what happens is he just sends you away, makes you study for a few more days, and then you come back and test and stuff like that. Yeah. So. So we're very lucky to have all 3 of those trainers and the people to be able to test our drivers.
Thank you for that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We move on to support services.
I would like to do the action item that under transportation.
Okay. That's kind of where we're at.
Okay, I'm sorry, support service, okay, I was thinking, where are you going? Yes, any other questions on transportation?
Transportation or any of the other, tech coordinator,
I would
maintenance?
just say when we have a chance, we would start looking at some of our cameras and stuff in the buses and see if they're actually working, because the roads have been pretty bad.
Oh, it's shaking the cameras.
It's just shaking, the washboard and.
So the reserve level is because when he's not a big pay when he has a real shape kind of pay shuffle, he said, no, I'm telling Mr. Shannon says, so he told us not to pay that we'll pay.
I agree that road needs paved in that way.
But you ought to see people drive through. Can you imagine if it would be paid? I'd have to drop my caliber another foot. Sorry. My bad.
First of all, I'd like to, just on the transportation piece, thank you for your work, Mr. Rubiano, but if you could thank Mr. Berkman for us as well. Just, I know that that would be the other contentious thing that, you know, I mean, a lot of people in the community have been frustrated about, and, you know, well, all of us have pretty much tried to, you know, bring that to the forefront. You know, and I realize that every time, you know, that we bring it, it's a level of stress, but we also understand that you all understand that it's stressful. And so the fact that this information is encouraging, you know, we know that work is being done on it. So I just definitely wanted to extend to him, you know, the gratitude of thanks, just because of, you know, I do know that that good work is being done there. And so if you'll extend that. The other thing I was going to say is just recognizing in the food service report the farm to school piece with that. I think that is a really neat program. I mean, I learned a little more about it. I mean, I've been familiar with it as it's made its way, but got a little update last week. You know,
when did they start that?
We've actually been doing it for multiple years, but
In Mexico, girl.
probably 5 or 6 years.
As long as
But the logistical hoops that everybody in the process has to jump through, not just the district, but the farmer and the ranchers, even PED working with USDA, correct? I took kind of just, I wanted to learn a little bit more about it, and so Superintendent Salazar you know, put me in touch with Mr. McLeave, and we sat down and we kind of talked about it, you know, and I was really shocked. I mean, I just thought it was easy, something, you know, hey, you want corn from soy box. It's not that, you know.
Where the kids are shaking.
Mr. McLeave makes it a game. Let's learn how to shuck corn. And so they shucked all the corn.
But it was eye-opening to just learn the procedure and the logistical hoops that have to be jumped through, and the consideration even from the district of our facilities to handle and process the food. You know, it's not like it's pre-processed elsewhere. So this is true farm to school lunches, and so I definitely, you know, I don't see him here today.
No, he's got a new position. He's the assistant principal, so
That's
he doesn't
right.
have to come anymore. He loves it. Best part of his
He was
new
here
job.
earlier, and I wanted to thank him. Anyway, just for his time the other day. So, but other than that, no questions. So we can stay on transportation and unless there's any other comments on, we should take care of the action item per capita feeder program.
Yes, Ms. Romero has a request, another request.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Salazar, so we have 2 new students, and we're very excited to have them in our district. Just moved here from, one was out of state and one was APS, and both students do require transportation per capita for some significant medical issues, so we would just like to add them to the list of the 4 that you approved last month.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve the per capita feeder program for our additional 2 new students.
All right, so we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar under support services, transportation, the action item to approve the per capita feeder program.
I so moved.
All right, we'll need a second. So we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're good to move on to item E.
Okay, item E, this is our action item. So as we talked about earlier, we have had a very generous donation from a couple, 3 community members of the 40 acoustic guitars, gig bags, and guitar strings that will be split between the 2 middle school programs, so 20 for Edgewood Middle School and Moriarty Middle School. The value of the equipment is $9,602, and so I would like to recommend the approval of this donation for the Guitars for the Middle School program.
So a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to accept the donation of guitars for middle school programs. Any questions? Just need a motion. So need a second.
I'll second.
Motion.
I second that.
Yep.
Okay.
Ms. Burns seconded. So we got a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. That was good.
I know.
That was exciting.
He's all excited.
Thank you to the anonymous donors.
Yes, exactly. We will make sure and get a thank you note to him.
All right. So nothing under board policy.
Nothing under board policy. Advanced planning, just a reminder that the Region 4 regional meeting, we're hosting it on October 12th at 5:30. We're going to be doing it at the high school commons area. We are meeting Friday with the organization sponsors of the different groups that we're having. We're going to, FFA is going to be working with us, messengers, the cheerleaders, dance team, band, ROTC. So we're going to get kids involved and get them there doing entertainment, serving food, clearing off, doing all those cool things. So we'll be meeting with them. We have kind of talked about table decorations. We got some cute little 1-pound bags of Swaylock beans that we're going to put in the center and get some pumpkins. So that's those things when we don't want to think about all the other things we need to be doing, thinking about centerpieces.
Then we can take them to the cafeteria.
There you go.
There's also a training, we get hours for training.
You do. It'll be 2 hours training credits that you get. Is that correct, Ms. Patty? So Ms. Patty's working on food and getting all the RSVPs and
We started over in our training hours, right?
Yes. It'll start over in July, September.
Did not.
So everybody's got 0.
We're at 0.
You're at 0. Dang, they keep taking those away. Yeah, build it back up. So we will be doing that, and unless we hear differently from you, we are assuming you're all coming. Because I will hunt you down and bring you because you were the ones that made us do it. So,
Oh, you didn't have a hand in that.
yeah, right. I was like, oh yeah, we can do a lot better than this.
Oh,
I want to show my kids off, so, but we're very excited about that. The only other thing, we may need to have a special meeting before our October meeting to give the president and or vice president the ability to act on behalf of the board for our PSCOC meeting that we will be having in Santa Fe on October 11th in regards to requesting funds for demolition for MES and EES buildings. Actually, it's old MES or old MES. I'm not tearing down your buildings again. You have 89 kinders, you're busting at the seams. So we will need, so that they can speak on behalf of the whole board. So it will be a quick one, and I apologize, we didn't think about it until Monday, so I couldn't get it on the agenda for this board meeting.
Under advanced planning, are there any other things to consider or think about? Alright, so you're good, moving on to
My favorite part of the evening. I recommend that you approve the adjournment of the meeting.
is there a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar for adjournment?
Second.
Motion and a second. All members in
Second,
favor,
third.
say aye.
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 She thinks that I